Good evening. Imagine a person so repugnant that an entire country fears you. Imagine that in death you fade into folklore and become the monster that parents tell their children about so they'll behave. Today in Horrific History, we'll look at such a man. Before we begin, I must warn that some of the content of tonight's topic may be distressing to some people. Viewer discretion is advised. Now sit back, hit the lights, and let's begin. The 1950s were a very different time. Many countries were still recovering from the horrors of World War II, as well as blossoming into the modern age. Thailand was one such country, still young and mostly rice farms and vast jungles. An influx of Chinese migrants and traders brought with them a boom to the Thai economy, as well as many trade opportunities that would one day bring Thailand to the country we know today. One of these Chinese immigrants was a man by the name of Huang Li Wei, born 1927 in the Hun Lai sub-district of the Shantou province in China. He was the youngest of 4 brothers in a farming family. Being from a poor family, Li Wei would often wander and beg for food. Children of this era were often resented or exploited, and Li Wei was no exception. It is reported that this time he met a priest who would advise him to eat the hearts and livers of other humans, causing him to kill animals and eat their raw meat, and especially the heart and liver, to gain their power. While this story is reported, there is no concrete evidence of this actually happening, and may have been exaggerated to increase the horrors of his later life. Li Wei, like many youths at the time, was conscripted to fight against the Japanese in the Second Sino-Japanese War. At only 18 years old, he was surrounded by Japanese forces, along with several of his fellow conscripts. During this time, their supplies ran out, and they were forced to eat anything they could to survive. This included the boiled heart, liver, and intestines of one of their fallen comrades. Shortly after the war ended, Li Wei returned to his hometown of Shantou. Being poor, he decided to move to Thailand for work. There are conflicting reports of how he arrived in Thailand, with some stories reporting him being invited by a fellow soldier to work with a maritime company, after which they could both cross the border easily, and others saying he fled to avoid being conscripted to fight against communist China. December 20, 1946, Li Wei, henceforth referred to as Sioi, arrives in Thailand. On his arrival, he is detained for 10 days by immigration, before being released by Mr. Tin Ki Sa-ang, vouched for him, after which he stayed at the Tianjin Hotel for 5 or 6 days in the Pranakhon province, which is a part of Bangkok today. After this, he moved to Tapsake in the Prachuap Khiri Khan province on the 30th of January 1947, as he mentioned to police during his interrogations. Sioi had many jobs and lived in many different places. He seemed to move around quite a lot, never staying in one place for very long. This may have been a way to avoid suspicion at the time, or it may have simply been moving on to better opportunities. He would begin his attacks on the 8th of April 1954 with the attack of Bangon Pamonsut. Luckily, Bangon survived the attack. She was only 10 years old at the time. Sioi's second victim was 10-year-old Nidsay Po on the 10th of May 1954, just a month after his first attack. Nid was brutally attacked, with her throat being slit and a dissection cut from chin to navel. The third victim was again in the Tapsake district, and also just over a month after the previous attacks. On the 20th of June 1954, Lim Huang Se-Lao was raped and murdered, with her throat being sliced. The fourth victim was a full 4 months after the last. On October 27, 1954, Gum Nyan Sali's life was cut short in the Pranbury district of Prachuap Khiri Khan, with Sioi killing the young girl and eating her heart and liver. Only a month later, on November 29, 1954, the body of Li Ju Seitung was found after she had gone missing on the way to the opera in the Dusit district of Pranakhon province with her mother. Sioi was never fluent in the Thai language, and yet managed to describe the scene to the police with a disturbing level of accuracy, including how he removed the heart and liver of the young girl. 3 years would pass before the body of Siu Ju Seitung was found in the Pra Pratom Jetty Cave on the 5th of February 1957, with the internal organs once again being removed. January 27, 1958, sees an end to the killing, with COE being caught red-handed attempted to remove evidence of his final victim. A young boy by the name of Sum Boin Boon Yakan had been murdered and dissected in the same way as the others. The boy's father caught COE attempting to burn the boy's body in a pile of brush. Justice came swiftly for the victims of COE. His trial beginning on March 25th of 1958, with him entering a plea of guilty to all charges. After 9 days, he was indeed found guilty of all charges and sentenced to life in prison due to his confessions and the plea of guilty. Given the amount of evidence against him, police filed for an appeal, and on the 16th of September 1958, the Court of Appeals sentenced COE to death by firing squad. 1 year later, on the 16th of September 1959, COE was executed. Normally, this is where our story would end, and in a way it does. The man had been executed, justice had been served, but a legend had been born, and man became monster. COE's crimes were so horrific, and people began to fear that he wasn't really dead, or that his spirit would attack any child out alone at night. This fear spread like wildfire due to the media's portrayal, and now infamous photo that made him look like a madman, even though he was merely yawning at the time. Due to the peaceful and spiritual nature of the Thai people, this news of a single man doing such monstrous things made them truly think a demon walked amongst them. COE's body is now on permanent display in the Sirirad Medical Museum to show that he is really dead. In 1984, a television miniseries was released, which caused far more fear among younger viewers, causing the legend of COE to live on. It is worth mentioning that some of the murders have been attributed to different killers and may not have been COE at all. Even the first victim said that he was not her attacker, and that her attacker was the brother-in-law of the local mayor. In fact, this brother-in-law is thought to have been behind many, if not all, of the murders in the Tapsake district. COE got many of the details wrong during his interrogations and subsequent confessions. COE's confession neglected to mention the rape of Lim Huang and that a second person had been apprehended in relation to this crime. There is also no concrete evidence COE did in fact partake in cannibalism, and on May 31st of 2019, the sign "Cannibal" has been removed from his ghastly tomb, and many doubts have been cast on over his guilt. I invite you to look into this case yourself if you have the time, as it is very fascinating. However, a lot of the resources are in Thai. There is also a movie simply called COE, which was released in 2004, but that more delves into the paranormal. This movie also helped to cast doubt on the guilt of COE in relation to many of the murders. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed this telling of the history of Thailand's most notorious serial child killer. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. You can follow me on most social media and chat with me over at the Opinionated Outcast Discord server. If you really enjoy what I do, consider supporting me on Patreon for as little as $2 a month, where there are rewards, sneak peeks, and other Patreon-only exclusives. All links are in the description below. And remember, it's always scarier when it's real. Good night.